evening. On the 28th of January this year, I had the privilege of conducting my mother's funeral. It was a time of celebration of her life and of her love to me and her love of life. Molly was born on the 5th of September 1927 and died on the 18th of January 2016. She made her exit a week before my birthday, when I would have been 65. That was typical of Mum to be awkward and leave this earth at that time, but I do believe that her time had come, and her time to make the transition in a wider sense to another lifestyle and another place of peace and rest. The interesting thing is that on the evening of the 17th, which was the Saturday, the lady who went in to put Mum to bed told me that evening she'd said to this lady that her cousin David had been to see her, and she said to this lady, if David comes again, tell him to come in. So we believe as spiritualists that indeed he came for her to bring her forward and to take her to her rest. So Mum passed away peacefully in bed between the 17th and the 18th of January. We're not sure of the time. We do know that she passed with a form of pneumonia on one of her lymph nodes, which would obviously cause her problems. But anyway, she passed away. On the 28th of January, I had the privilege of ministering to mums and people who were present at her funeral service. There were 7 people in all in attendance. That's myself and 6 other people who I'm most grateful for their attendance. Those people know who they are. And for me, it meant a great deal for them to be present. There weren't as many there as I thought there would be, but on the other hand, maybe God knew what he was doing in having only 7 people present. Had there been any more, I would have found it even more difficult to take the service than I already did. Some folks have asked me how I've managed to do it. But the thing is, I believe that if I believe as I do as a spiritualist, I've got to walk the talk. It's okay talking about it, but I have to experience it and go through this time of bereavement, but also be able to rise above it and take the service accordingly, which I did. I'm not saying that I wasn't upset after the service. There are those who know me know that I broke down as I was leaving the service after I'd said the committal, which I found hard to do. But all in all, it was a celebration of Mum's life. It wasn't a time to be mournful, it was a time to be, in a way, excited at the passing of Mum, and in particular at her life and her love of music, which she shared with other people in her life. She was an extremely good singer, and actually at one point was a member of the Bradford Festival Choral Society, which she had to audition for way back in 1947, and therefore she did that audition, and she actually sang with certain people who the younger end won't even know have heard of. One was called Owen Brannigan, and the other one was a gentleman called Joseph Locke, whom she listened to with great rapture and found his music inspiring. For that reason I chose three pieces of music that weren't hymns. There was the Holy City, Count Your Blessings, and the final one, which was the one that we used as the final song, was Goodbye, from an operetta called The White Horse Inn. And so she passed over, and the curtains closed, and Mum made a transition. She'd already done that anyway, and the body basically was a shell which was laid in the wooden box on the catafalque. But the interesting thing is, since then, the interesting things that have happened to me since then have been absolutely fantastic, and it really began more or less after the service and after the funeral. Mum didn't really come to me until last week, and we were actually, Bill and I, at they call it Freeport, which is at Castleford, and I was walking along and I felt the bottom of my coat being tugged, and I turned to Bill and said, "You haven't been tugging my coat, have you?" And she said, "No, I haven't." And anyway, I didn't think any more about it till that night, and I was sat on my own. I'd been sleeping too well recently, and I was sat there the other evening, and I was sat quite a while. And I happened to have a look at this particular book called Christ Our Saviour, which was bought by my great-grandmother for my grandfather, Mum's dad. And in the book, there was a picture of my mum and dad together. And this photograph was taken at Lancaster Priory way back in 1991. And as I looked at the photograph, I'd already asked Mum that she'd had to send me some form of a sign that she was okay, and this photograph appeared inside the book, which I found. I looked at the photograph. I actually saw for the first time that my dad was actually holding my mum's hand. Now, anybody that knows my dad would know that that was something that my dad never did. Very rarely showed mum any kind of affection at all, and it was so interesting to see this photograph, which I've actually put on my mobile phone as my as a backcloth to my mobile wallpaper, I believe it's called now. And we have this photograph in our possession, which we're going to put up at some point in time when we've sorted other things out that we need to do. But it was so interesting to watch, and so interesting to actually know the celebration of a life. You know, Mum did an awful lot for my dad. Dad was not a well man all his life, and yet she sacrificed her life for him. She took the hymn, "Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee," in a serious way, and it cost her dearly. Her life was not easy. She gave up her singing, she gave up her choir at the chapel that she went to, attended to at Undercliff Methodist Chapel. She gave up an awful lot for Dad, and in some ways, perhaps at the point of time, it was not really appreciated. Maybe it is now, I'm sure it is. But as time went on, obviously I arrived on the scene, and things got a little bit easier, but also Dad was still not very well. But at the end of it all, Mum still had that uniqueness of faith. Wasn't born of church or chapel or any kind of ministry or anything like that. Was born of an inborn belief in the Spirit of God, but also within the Spirit of life. And in particular, I've always believed Mum had a spiritualist belief in her own way. You know, a lot of people believe like that. You don't have to go to church, you don't have to have churchianity, you don't have to believe in anything particularly religious, but you can have a deep faith even if you don't go to church. And I've argued this before. It's not necessary to go to church to have a faith or a belief. And Mum had that very strong faith. It's a good job she did, because later on, obviously, with Dad getting worse and getting more irritable and bad-tempered, she had to deal with an awful lot, but she came through it. And yes, she sacrificed her young life. She sacrificed her life right through. And I've got to say this, because it's my mum. Maybe I'm being a little bit prejudiced. I hope I'm not. But you know, there are the words that I want to use at the close of this broadcast, and it's these words: "Well done, my good and faithful servant." So God bless you, Mum. God bless all those who were at the service, including those with John Bottomley, David Rose, Barbara, Bill Finn, Suzanne Simpson, Jack Morris, and myself. And I want to send my love to them and my thanks. So again I say to my mum and to my mum's spirit, well done, my good and faithful servant.